Okay. Cristina Frias is an award-winning actor, educator, and storyteller with an MFA in acting from the California Institute of the Arts, a BA in sociology from UC Berkeley, and a certificate from Lambda's Summer Shakespeare Intensive in London. She is known for her work in Real Women Have Curves, The Motherfucker with a Hat, Between Riverside and Crazy, and Romeo and Juliet. She has recently appeared on Animal Kingdom, One Day at a Time, and in the award-winning web series The Couch. She is currently in production for the series Funny Brown People. As a storyteller, Cristina has written and performed solo shows, short plays, and sketch comedy skits throughout the US, in East Africa, Europe, and Latin America. She is a founding member of the seminal San Francisco Latina Theater Lab and continues to mentor emerging Latina artists and students of color. Profe Frias has taught all levels and styles of acting and Latinx theater. She's also an educator in the arts, offering customized workshops and coaching sessions for individual artists, educational institutions, and corporate organizations. Cristina is the recipient of several Artist in Resident Awards from the LA Department of Cultural Affairs, a nominee for the Buettner Award for Excellence in the Arts, and a semifinalist for CTG's Sherwood Award in 2018. She is a proud member of Hero Theater Company, Latinx Theater Alliance, and the SAG-AFTRA AEA Actors Union. Hello, Cristina. Thank you so much for doing this with me.
Thank you. Hi, Brittany.
Hello. So I will just hop right into the questions here.
Okay.
The first one, how did you first become interested in theater?
I always loved speech and communications and reading out loud. I think it was just something that came naturally for me. But I probably in high school, I took my first drama class, did my first play, but it was just extracurricular. It was something to do. I enjoyed it. I had some talent. And I would say that was when I was first bit by the bug.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And how did your interest in studying theater translate into a career? Was this something that you always wanted to pursue, or was falling into this career kind of something that came naturally or unexpected?
Not at all. Not at all. I'm second generation Mexican American, so I am the third of three daughters that went to college, and it was sort of expected. You get your bachelor's in something serious. That's pretty common. Mine was in sociology. I went to UC Berkeley, as you read. But what I ended up doing is sort of exploring performing arts, taking theater arts classes, acting classes. But what really transformed me, and I would say awakened me, and it was kind of my moment of consciousness and critical thinking, and really kind of showed me that I could pursue this as a career, was Chicano studies. So I took 3 Chicano studies classes, and there was one in particular that was Chicano Teatro, where we got to read plays by playwrights of, at that time we called, Latina, Latino, Latinx, Latin didn't exist then. And I was taught by one of the most celebrated Chicana feminist writers, poets, playwrights, Sherry Moraga. And it was a really dynamic class. And, we all know now that there's enough studies and examples that when you get to see yourself in a story, in a play, on the stage, it's transformative. And so that really was the beginning of my, I would say, commitment, curiosity. Could I do this professionally? I still kept my major in sociology, but I ended up becoming part of a group called Teatro Califas. And we were a student farm group on the Berkeley campus that really grew out of the need to have characters that we felt reflected our reality, because that's not what we were getting cast in, which is pretty typical. So luckily, some of us took the initiative and started writing sort of sketch comedy and performing around the campus and then around the Bay Area. And, we were together for a few years.
That's awesome. A couple questions for you, jumping off of your response. Do you feel that your degree in sociology has influenced your process as an artist, as an actor, as an educator. And then also, did you just kind of jumping off of my own experience as well? Like I am getting to that point now where I have to make a decision if this is something I'm going to dive fully into, which that decision is made and I'm committed to that, but I'm terrified. So I'm always curious to ask people in the beginning of their career if they were, afraid of pursuing this professionally.
It's a great question. I don't know. Yeah, I was afraid, honestly. I remember graduating and crying to my parents, like, I don't want to grow up type thing, because for the first, 23 years of my life, I was in a safe environment, quote unquote, of learning. And then suddenly you feel that pressure. I got to go, now prove myself and get a job and pay the rent. And that takes time to figure out. And as we both know, the arts is not necessarily a guaranteed path, especially acting. I mean, I think acting is really difficult. And we've all heard that kind of quote, if there's something else you're really passionate about, go do that.
Go do that instead. Yep.
Because this isn't for the faint of heart. Your heart gets broken when you are pursuing something that speaks to your mind, body, spirit, right? And what I have learned, I would say, looking back, is that everything informs your work as an artist. So yes, I was a sociology major and I got to study with some incredible professors. And I've always considered myself a global artist. I've traveled a lot. I've been lucky to travel as a performer. But it really opened up my eyes, to different cultures. I took classes like, race and ethnic relations, sexuality and gender, third world films. So I always had an appetite for learning and for sort of expanding my knowledge of the world. So that absolutely informs the path of an artist, because so much of what we draw on is our imagination. And when we get to embody characters that we may not have a lot in common with, we can draw on knowledge, right? And research. So, that was part of the response to your question. And then, my first several jobs had nothing to do with the arts. I was literally just paying the bills and doing theater at night, probably for the first, I would say, easily 6 to 7 years out of college. But it was the most sort of productive time, a time of learning, developing my skill sets, my aesthetic. I got to live in San Francisco and work with another company that I was a founding ensemble member of, Latina Theater Lab. And again, it was sort of like an opportunity and a space to collaborate with other Latinas of all different, Latin, Latino, Latinx backgrounds, and write our own work. And that was empowering. And we got grants and we were together for several years. And so it was a really, I would say, prolific time in my art making. And that was all at night after the full-time job downtown in the financial district, but that's kind of what you do. And I tell my students as an educator, like, find something else that you're good at, that you won't end up resenting, that, you can be excited about when you wake up in the morning, whether it's an after-school teaching program, or, I bartended, I drove Lyft, and I kind of loved it all because I'm a people person, but it was tough. And that's like not so long ago.
Right.
So, but I say, like, stay open, and you probably know life is not a direct path. It's everything but. And there are no guarantees in anything. We know that now, having living through a pandemic. It's interrupted everything that we thought we could rely on. So I think, it's exciting that you're starting out and the world is wide open.
Yeah.
And you're a double major. I kind of do regret I did not double major. In retrospect, I think it would have been cool if I was a little more focused. But at the time, again, I didn't know theater would become my path.
Yeah.
I was open to it, but I really at that time was not sure. I thought maybe drama therapy, something where it sounded like professional, that my parents would like, and I could incorporate the theater stuff. But I became, an actor and educator.
Yeah, that's incredible. Who were and are your inspirations? Who are artists or educators that you have looked up to and admired?
Good question. Well, I've already mentioned one, Shetty Moraga,
Yes.
who was my professor at Cal Berkeley, and we're still friends, believe it or not. And she's just somebody that has become a mentor, a friend. I got to work alongside her at UC Santa Barbara. I taught up there for a winter quarter, and she had just started her full-time appointment. So definitely her. I would say the women that I got to work with in Latina Theater Lab, there were four in particular that kind of envisioned the space of Latina Theater Lab and what it would become, and gave the rest of us an opportunity. And that's Tessa Connie Martinez, Dina Martinez, Wilma Bonet, and Jamie Lujan. And they called themselves the Comadres. And they held auditions. And I saw the ad probably in a backstage West and brought along a few friends, and we became the original ensemble. So they definitely created a safe space and a really creative space for us. We were one of the first all Latina theater companies of the time in the 90s. And then I moved to LA, and I would say I got cast in my first equity production through Center Theater Group, and it was a Theater for Young Performances piece called Black Butterfly. It was conceived of and directed by MacArthur Genius Fellow Luis Alfaro, who has gone on to do the Greek trilogy and Mojada and Oedipus, El Rey and Electricidad. And they had come and saw me and worked up in the Bay Area. And it was back in the day of faxing, and they were like, fax us your resume. We think you'd be good for this part. And it was a coming of age story of 5 young women from East LA. And they commissioned 3 writers, 3 Chicana poets and writers to tell this story. So we got to tour all over Los Angeles schools, go to the Kennedy Center and perform, the Smithsonian. We performed on the Mark Taper stage. It was really, again, another kind of pinnacle moment for me, where I was exposed to the power of theater arts education. So that was really, really impactful. And alongside Luis Alfaro at the time was Diane Rodriguez, and they were the co-directors of the Latino Theater Initiative at the Mark Taper Forum. And, they really provided so much space for not only Latinas, Latinos, Latinx, but Asian American people, Black American people, diverse ability, communities. At the time it was, called something different, but again, transformative for me. Diane passed in 2020, and she remains a mentor, even in spirit, trailblazing force here in the national theater scene. Like, she was handpicked by the Obama administration to serve on the, I believe it was the National Council of the Arts. So, and then also I would say in graduate school, again, my first year at Cal Arts, my MFA 1 acting teacher, Marisa Chivas, Cuban American, so I'm naming people who obviously have a shared cultural background, because when you see yourselves in leaders, in artists that are making an impact and making a change and working professionally, that's a game changer. They are the people that showed me, oh yeah, you can do this too. It is possible, So I would say, like, those people, when I look at my life, remain mentors to me.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me, my dad always tells me that quote. It's like, you are who you surround yourself with, like that your 10 closest people are who you're going to become.
Wow.
Some incredible people to surround yourself with. What inspired you to become an artist when you were younger, and what inspires you today?
Good question. I grew up in a household where, my parents loved music. They loved to dance. We had a piano, and we were lucky. I grew up here in the San Gabriel Valley, so they would bring us into the music center, and we would get to see like plays, and I got to see, I remember Annie, I think it was the touring, production of Annie, and wait outside and meet Annie. And then, Phantom of the Opera. And I grew up definitely in a home where there was a lot of cultural appreciation of the arts. No one had any particular talent. My mom actually does play the piano, but it was more just like a hobby.
Mhm.
So they inspired me and continue to, because very curious about the world, which I think is really important as an artist. I think I learned curiosity from them. Um, and then like I said, I would say, like, I was in Catholic school, so art was not an extracurricular. I played a lot of sports, believe it or not, and it was very competitive, which probably prepared me, for the life of an actor. But then you realize you're only in competition with yourself, right?
Yeah.
So, in first through eighth grade, there was like church choir that I didn't even make, and then the second year I did figure out my voice and audition with a song that would, get me accepted into sixth grade choir, but that wasn't, I don't know if that was a creative inspiration. I would say, the opportunities I had to go see plays. My eldest sister moved to Paris in her 20s, and I was lucky enough to go visit her in my teens. And I can remember her taking me to see plays. So just seeing the live performance,
Mhm.
in these different cities, and how it felt as an audience member, and that you're participating in something extraordinary, just always inspired me. I felt it made me feel more alive, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that feeling exactly, actually.
Yeah.
Oh yes, absolutely. I can relate to that inspiration a lot. It's so overwhelming, when you're sitting in a room and you're watching like a beautiful performance that's really resonating with you, and you can feel it resonating with everyone. Everyone is on the exact same wavelength. And I just feel like as an actor, that's constantly what I'm chasing, is being like, oh, I know that this is what's being created in the room right now.
Yeah, it's you just can't, you know, there's nothing else like it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Which leads me to, what inspires or motivates you to accept the roles and projects that you've been involved in?
Hmm. Great writing, great writing is everything. And I've been lucky to work on some really good pieces by great writers. And it's sort of like when you get to explore language and poetry, or even something experimental. I went to Cal Arts, so I was in really interesting projects that may have not had that traditional structure, but the collaborative aspect, right, of the art form is what's thrilling to me. So, at the beginning, you kind of just audition because that's what you do. And I may have said yes to things in retrospect that maybe I wouldn't now, because I was young and maybe naive and figuring out what my personal aesthetic was. And I think that's the beauty of the journey, is your aesthetic can change and you change, and therefore what you seek out and what finds you will morph. But I think it's always comes down to great writing for an actor, and who my collaborators are. I want to work with people I love. And, we've all been in experiences where it's like, oh, wow, ooh, this is going to be a long, few months, because
Yeah.
there might be, someone that you don't quite connect with. But, overall, I can say those experiences are, very rare. I feel like something about theater, we become family. So
Mhm.
you could see someone that you were on a project with 20, 30 years ago, and it's like, oh my God,
Mhm.
it's like your hermanas, your hermanos, your tias, it's I think we all feel that way. It's something bigger than ourselves. And that's what's, I think, has always drawn me to it. I'm very social, so I love collaboration, and I love making something. So with people, and that's what theater is.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Oh, so another question that just popped into my brain, you mentioned kind of creating your own personal aesthetic. Would you say that's something that you grew to do consciously, or did it happen and then you noticed, if that makes sense?
That's interesting. I think both. I teach Chicano theater, and one of the questions I always ask is, when do you think you're? And I think I've referred to this phrase earlier. When was your like first moment of political consciousness? And then I give examples of what that could have been, even when you're not aware that's what is happening. And for me, it was probably when I was 5 years old, and we were boycotting grapes because my family was supporting the grape strike that the United Farm Workers was leading, with Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta and many others. And so I grew up with a certain social consciousness about the world. And so when I started doing plays, like I said, at Berkeley, I didn't know that that's what I was doing per se, but obviously it was following the path of theater for social justice. We were making plays that reflected our truth, our reality, that we didn't see reflected on the main stages. And I often wonder, like, obviously I'm Mexican American, I identify as Chicana, Latina, it's sort of like, yeah, that's what was available to me. You know what I mean? So it's the path that revealed itself to me, and the path that I took, and then it just got deeper and deeper and deeper. But I really believe that the early roots of that were as a child, and seeing that my family had an awareness of the world, and that sense of social justice then basically really complemented my theater work in a way that is still very true to this day. Yes, I've done Shakespeare, and he's a humanist, and many of his plays or their plays reflect great social issues of our time. However, I've also done things that are very specific to like Chicano theater,
Right.
And documentary style theater and stuff like that. So, I mean, I love it all. I do. And then I would say, once I went to graduate school, my curiosity about more like theater of the absurd and experimental theater, devised theater work started to reveal itself as well, which is the beauty of, going back to school later, because I came with everything I knew and then got to be exposed to all these other forms and styles that I really maybe hadn't before. And so it was a great playground to also deepen that. So I would say, the aesthetic continues to evolve, but I also think who you are, fundamentally you are, I can't say I'm that different from 30 years ago, I'm just more seasoned, more trained, but I think the things that interested me then do now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, switching gears to your career as a writer, you've written and performed solo shows. This is something we studied pretty extensively in class. So I'm curious, what motivated you to write and perform a solo piece?
Ooh, I like to write. And as I said, with the earlier ensembles I was part of, we had space to write, sketch comedy or short dramatic scenes, and we would have guest artists come in and kind of give us tools to create that. And then I think I saw, solo performances as another way of being a storyteller, but also having a little more control over the story, I wanted to tell. I had an opportunity, it's the poster here. Oh, I think it's to perform it. I don't know if you can see it. It's right here.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
4x4 New Works Highways performance space.
Oh, that's
And I applied for a grant because the way I believe that it was offered was that you would get these different mentor artists coming in and working with you with writing and movement, and then you would develop like a 30-minute show. And it's just where I was at that moment in time. I've always loved learning. I've always loved being in workshops. So I was always seeking out different avenues of like just learning new skills, not thinking, okay, this is something I'm going to do. And that's where that sort of began. It always begins with someone giving you space to create. That's really what it is. I'm not the disciplined writer that will wake up at 5 and drink my coffee and write 10 pages or whatever the ritual is. I need structure and I need deadlines and I need a community to hold me accountable. And that's what that was. So I started writing I guess I had done little excerpts here and there, but that was sort of the first one that I wrote and performed as part of this festival, and people came and watched it at Highways Performance Space. And then I took a version of it to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. It was more like Fringe of the Fringe because I didn't apply in time to do the Fringe Festival. So my friend and I went and we made flyers and we sublet a theater space from a company that was in the Fringe Festival, and I just would perform in their space, and kind of further developed this piece I was working on. And so it came out of that. I haven't done a lot of it recently, but it's funny. Today I actually have a conversation later today with the Los Angeles Performance Practice, which they're doing incredible work, and they support artists of all different backgrounds, whether you're into puppetry or opera, solo political work, and so I have a conversation with them later just to kind of bounce some ideas, because I am looking to maybe reconnect with that side again of my artistic, journey, and see what comes up.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I hope you take this as a sign that you're moving in the right direction.
I hope so.
What motivates you? Oh, I kind of already asked this, but if this rewording kind of sparks any new ideas, what motivates you to sign on to a new project? In other words, what does a new venture have to offer that makes you want to be a part of it?
Yeah, again, the people, the material, and then even because of where I'm at in life too, it's sort of like I have more responsibilities. So also scheduling. I mean, it really can come down to what time of year is this? Can I fit it into my teaching work, my family life, things like that, logistical things. Sometimes, honestly, it's the beauty of getting older is that things don't feel so high stakes. Sure, you can get stressed out and you can get like excited and anticipate, an opportunity and be bummed if you don't get it. That's just real. But I think there's something you kind of just take a breath and go, you know what? I've been down this road before. And if not this project, the next one.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, lose sleep over it. But that's also coming from a place of, having a job, and not having to rely solely on being an actor, right, or an artist to pay my rent, and that's just real. Whereas, if you are counting on your art to eat, sometimes I think as a young artist anyway, you may say yes to things that may not always align with your aesthetic, with your trajectory, which means it takes a lot of strength and courage to say no. There's a lot of power in no. There's a lot of power in no. And I learned that, I don't know, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I think someone said, because right behind no is your next yes, and then, and it's all okay. It's all okay. It's like, what a gift to be an artist. If it becomes too stressful, then it's kind of like, maybe it's time to take a break. It's okay to take breaks. It's okay to take a year off. It's okay to go do something totally different. That's human. And then I think a lot of times you come back more interesting because you've developed other skills or had an experience living abroad, or, I'm a big advocate for traveling and festivals and conferences and like getting out of the comfort zone. And nowadays, where everything is just, fingertips away from us, right? International collaborations. Why not? We saw that in this pandemic. And we saw that in the Zoom world, like I said yes to so much because I could.
Right.
I could collaborate with people on Zoom, and I would not have been able to do most of it if, I had to drive across town or get on a plane. So I think that's silver lining too of this moment we're living. And I think some of it's going to stay. I really do. So, again, just looking at who are the people that are making work that's interesting and seeking them out, and or sometimes they seek you out. you know
Yeah, absolutely. Jumping off of that, you are in production for a new series, Funny Brown People. What excited you about this project?
so yeah, it says, I think, on that IMDb we're still in production, so
Yeah.
that's kind of, it's a little bit, misleading. So the producers are waiting for funding, to
Okay.
continue shooting, but we did shoot 6 webisodes, and that was something where the director and I had collaborated before. He had invited me to, be in a independent, like, sort of short he did, and I said sure, and it was fun working with him. And then he pitched this other idea, and the great part was we were invited to one of the producers' home to read the scripts together several times, and then the director slash writer would go back home and work on it again. Collaboration, right? So often with TV and film you don't get that same collaborative process that you do in theater, so you just have to do a lot of work on your own. You show up to set, boom. But in this case, and I think it's more typical of film or short film or webisodes, it's a little more, I don't want to say theatrical, but there's a little more room for rehearsal.
Mhm.
And I just like where they were going with it. We had conversations about my idea of the character, so it's been fun. It's entered a few festivals. I've got to see, I play a mother, a Latina mom, and it's about a young I have 2 children, and it's just sort of about being a first gen family trying to make it, and raise our family. And we have a young boy who's like a genius boy, and a young daughter who's playing soccer. And it was really fun. And just recently I saw it at the East LA Film Festival on a big giant screen. And that's always exciting because that doesn't happen a lot. So yeah, it was just one of those things. And what was great, because as an actor, you're always trying to get better footage if you are pursuing a career in film or TV. So that was a great way for me to get some good footage. And just reminds me I probably need to use some of it. I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
did that make it into my reel? That takes a lot of time, by the way. So yeah, it's a fun group of people.
Awesome. Checks all the boxes of the ideal
Yeah.
experience, it sounds like. What has been a project or show that has had the most impact on you personally or professionally?
Oh wow. Hmm. That's hard. Uh, the one that really felt like I had hit a new plateau in my career was The Motherfucker with a Hat at South Coast Rep, Stephen Ali Gurgis. And the reason why I say that is um, I had just graduated with my MFA, if I remember the timeline correctly. I could be wrong. I don't know what came first. But I'd gone back to school after being out in the world for several years, over a decade. And it was not a risk, but I kind of just interrupted my professional career, to go back and get some more skills. Um, so right after that, pretty soon after, I started booking regional theater, which I hadn't done up until that point, which I thought was really interesting. Because I wasn't a major undergraduate, I didn't have certain skill sets that I felt were necessary if I wanted to work in a regional theater capacity. So, things like voice, speech, those kinds of tools. And so I got cast in that show and it was so fun. And I felt so prepared. Like I was able to apply everything I had learned in graduate school, which, as you know, in school, it's like a laboratory.
Right.
It's the best time of your life because you get to be an artist 24/7. And that's where I felt like I really grew. And then I came out into the world and I was like ready. I was ready, you know. I was what is it, a oiled machine. And
Yeah.
so I got that show, which was, it's a wonderful show, you know, very dense language. And I got to play Victoria, and it's a great house in Orange County alongside a great company of actors with a great director. And then right after that, I'm pretty sure if I'm remembering correctly, I got Real Women Have Curves at Pasadena Playhouse. And the reason why these are all meaningful is because, you know, it sort of validated the fact that yes, it paid off that you went to school. Now, obviously, I still have student loans, but it was worth it to me, you know. And I always tell people, like, don't not go back to school because of the tuition. The way I perceive me as an actor, like this is my house, and if I'm paying mortgage on me for the rest of my life, I'm good with that, because what it has given me again are relationships and opportunity. And you know, as an educator, I'm able to teach higher ed, you know, because of that MFA. That was important to me. But so those, I would say it was sort of like this cluster of shows I got to do. Then I went to DC and did a Pulitzer Prize winning play, Between Riverside and Crazy, by Stephen Adly Gurgis, and played Church Lady. So again, traveling is for me huge on this path. And so those were kind of like 3 shows I did all within, I don't know, 3 years of each other, that definitely inform my path forward. You know, I felt like I made the right decision.
Yeah.
So yeah, and you know, I'm sure there's different, you know, Black Butterfly I mentioned earlier was very important in my life because it was marked the transition of me leaving the Bay Area, becoming an equity actor, becoming a pro. It really validated me again, that word of like, you can do this professionally. And then that also exposed me to arts education. And I had my first opportunity to teach theater because of that show. I met someone who referred me to someone, and then it went from there. So you know, when I look at those 2 kind of periods in my life, it's yeah, I would say that's what it is.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, you have been involved in a diverse range of projects, which you've just covered definitely, with various companies from Culture Clash to San Francisco Mime Troupe to Independent Shakespeare Company, excuse me. How have these experiences informed your process as an artist and educator?
It's what I teach. That's the beauty of it. It's what I teach. So I feel I've come full circle. Because you brought up some great, yeah, San Francisco Mime Troupe. That was another very, very transformative experience for me, because I got to go to Latin America and travel and perform all in Spanish. So that was the first. That was the first of that kind of an opportunity. It's great being in a position to teach theater and like having had worked with these either iconic companies or sort of legendary performance troupes or playwrights. You know, I always say I'm not bragging, everyone, but pretty much everyone in the syllabus I've worked with are my friends, and I love being from LA and in LA because, you know, I am friends with, you know, as I said, Luis Alfaro or Culture Clash, or, you know, my friend Marisa Chivas, who's an extraordinary writer, director, filmmaker, and they're my mentors and friends. But it's so beautiful when you get to a place, like literally, I was just texting my friend from Culture Clash the other day, like, hey, I need the links from your, you know, Chavez Ravine video, and I want to teach it in my class. And they're
Yeah.
like sending me the links, and we're all supporting each other. And I think that's what's so beautiful, is that I've been able to work with all of these people that come from a theater for social justice background. and are part of my artistic family, personal family now. So yeah, it's all just, and then it just all comes full circle. I mean, there's so many times I'm showing a video or, speaking to, whether it's the Teatro Campesino, and remembering when I was a young college student, seeing that for the first time. And it chokes me up every time because I see my students' eyes just light up, and they have not been taught yet, which breaks my heart because I feel like everyone should know about Teatro Campesino in elementary school, especially if you
Mhm.
live in California. But nonetheless, I'm in a position to expose students for the first time at the college level. And that's just, it is priceless. It is truly priceless, to have those moments. And, I've heard people say, like, sometimes people think, oh, you got into education. I feel like it's a really old way of viewing it because you didn't make it as an actor. And I'm like, wow, that's such a narrow minded way of viewing what teaching is. Because if anything, to me, it's as collaborative,
Yeah.
as creative, as performative as doing a live play. Truly, I think my skills are, as sharp as ever because I'm literally in the environment 24/7. Um, so I hope that answers the question. I
Yes.
sometimes
Yes.
go
No,
off on
absolutely.
tangents.
Absolutely. Um, you're also a founding member of the San Francisco Latina Theater Lab, whose mission is to provide Latina theater artists with a professional environment in which they can write, act, and produce their own work. Can you tell me a little bit more about the company and your involvement?
Okay, so that was the Latina Theater Lab I referred to with the comadres, and we were the
Mhm.
ensemble, and this is in the 90s. So again, it was just a really special time in San Francisco in the 90s. This is when you could afford to live there. It was pre.com.
Right.
I, had just come out of college. I was auditioning and doing anything I could really do, that was available to me. But Latina Theater Lab gave me space to be a leading actress, to be proud of my cultural heritage. And we created really beautiful pieces, and to this day, those women are my friends. And we're actually archived in the Institute of Hemispheric Studies out of NYU. Our company, our scripts, our video footage, which at that time wasn't as high tech as now, is there. Photographs, because we were a seminal group, and I think it speaks to how important it is for any group to have a space where they feel they belong. And it really supported my growth as a young emerging Latina. And like I said, I think it's probably the space where I most felt like, oh, I can write, and we got grants. I didn't write the grants, but I learned about what grants can do for a young company. So all those things, they all come into play, because later on I was in a position to be a recipient of grants, and I had to learn what that was like. And I remember thinking, oh, Latina Theater Lab, we got grants that supported these workshops and supported our company. And, we had people like Shetty Moraga and Culture Clash coming to see us, and so many other really, really, I would say, extraordinary artists pass through and either mentor us or witness our work. I got to work with a great company alongside that called Camposanto. They were big supporters of us. And now one of the founding members of that is artistic director of the Magic Theater in San Francisco, and we all were together at Diane Rodriguez's memorial a month ago. So it's a beautiful thing when, if you stay the course, woo, it is a rich life because you see these people and you're like, yeah, you've stayed the course and you've
Yeah.
made some amazing work. And sometimes it's not amazing, but who cares? Like, really, who cares?
Right.
Like,
Especially if it's
so
worth the community that you're gaining as well.
Yeah, you're exactly. That's such a great word. It's the community you're gaining. Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's incredible. Um, so what does it mean for you? What does being Latina mean for you?
Woo,
Yeah, loaded question.
I know, huh? I'm so lucky to be Latina. I'm so lucky to have a Mexican American father. My mother actually is Caucasian, but her background is French Basque. And she grew up in Lincoln Heights in the 30s and 40s in an all Latino community and speaks fluent Spanish. So culturally, she identifies as being Latina. But I always like to mention her because all of that's part of who my Latinidad is. I think that's how you say it.
Mhm.
Um, so it just means, really living and speaking and being completely proud of my cultural heritage, of being conscious that I stand on the shoulders of giants, of ancestors that have worked for generations, that I am here. Um, it's it's a gratitude of like what a amazing vast complex um cultural canon I come from, in terms of theater, right? And also being in LA and being Latina, it doesn't get any better than that. In a position of leadership, wow. Like I've been doing theater arts education for wait, over 20 years now, and I've been able to work with all levels and all communities. And you just see it. It makes a difference when people see someone who looks like you, understands you, is going to introduce you to work that reflects your community. And so it's just, I feel chingona, as they say, at this
Yep.
point in my life, with a lot of pride and a lot of gratitude that I am a Latina woman.
Yeah, that's incredible. Um, when you're talking about your parents, it made me so excited. My mom's Mexican and my dad's white. And so
Okay.
I relate. I relate too.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you've ever read the poem. Um, I think it's something called like How to Light Your Chingona Fire.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
but
Mm-mm.
I'll send it your way. I think you
Send
would
it to
like
me. Thank
it.
you.
How has being Latina informed your experience both as an artist, writer, performer, and as a professional in the industry, as someone who, you are constantly having to advocate for yourself?
Yeah, you see the statistics and it's devastating, and I see a lot of the conversations around underrepresentation and the stereotypes. And I'm like, wow, this conversation was happening 30 years ago when I was coming up, and 30 years before that, and so on and so on. And it's just exasperating. I will say that I truly believe, given sort of this golden age of online streaming platforms and seeing more and more Latino, Latinx playwrights transition to television and film and creating, story and content about our community, there is more opportunity. I do believe that. It's, you know, in these micro moments and micro opportunities. And I believe the more of us that can occupy these positions of leadership, of being casting directors, producers, writers, actors, educators, the more of us that are in those positions of influence and power we're going to change the game. But it's very, very, very slow. And so it's been very disheartening. That's what I would say. I can remember some key moments in my career where I didn't get it because I was Latina.
Mm.
That's just it. I didn't have the right body type, or whereas I feel like now maybe I would have had more of a chance for particular roles. And so, like kind of like what I've said, it's everything. I'm Latina, I'm Mexican American. All the work that comes my way, the opportunities I have are for Latino women, and that's a great source of pride. Now, you brought up, this idea of being mixed. and maybe white passing. I also know that that's a place of privilege. I also know that I've been able to play Italians and Brazilians, and even, French, and, because of the way I look, and I'm very conscious of that. But despite all of that, the opportunities, have been limited because I'm part of a, marginalized group by the mainstream industry, right? But I do believe it's changing. And I think my role now is to continue to create space and opportunity for, young people of color, not just Latinos, Latinas, Latinx, but Black, Asian, you know, um, all different diverse groups, so that they know it's possible,
Yeah.
that they know that indigenous, that there's not a lot of us in higher ed, but it's a big responsibility and a big opportunity to make change by, again, introducing the scripts we do, the projects we direct. I'm a big fan of your professor, Dr. Secret, right? And I just think, it's, yeah, I can't disconnect one way or the other. I just am Latina. My entire career, that I've just shared, has been sort of because I'm Latina or Mexican
Right.
American or Chicana. I mean, and how lucky am I, that I
Mhm.
got to work with all these people because of that. But no one wants to be like pigeonholed or stereotyped, and I think the mainstream culture is still very ignorant of
Mhm.
everything we are, and in all our beauty and all our complexity, and all the different ways our backgrounds are from whatever, Latin American country, we come from. It's vast. It's vast, and it's our jobs to, um, I think, reflect them with as much integrity, and pride as we possibly can, and always collaborate, because I do not know everything. I constantly make mistakes, I don't know, a lot, and therefore, I just let people that I'm working with, whether it's professionally or my students, like, this is where I'm coming from, this is my background. But wow, I bet you come from somewhere completely different. Let's talk about that. Let's storytell. Let's get to know each other through speaking our truth,
Right.
and so that's a nice way into the work for me.
Totally. All about being a lifelong learner.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mhm. So I'm very inspired by your work as an educator. You've talked a lot about it already in this interview, but how has your experience as a professional in the industry informed your process as a teacher? And what has inspired you to continue teaching?
Can you say that one more time?
Yeah. How has your experience as a professional in the industry informed the way that you teach, and what has inspired you to continue teaching?
Yeah, so it's because I'm Latina and I get to work with a, predominantly Latina, Latino, Latinx community, it's a perfect pairing. It's a perfect
Yeah.
match, because I could stand there and, just like I am with you, share these different real world experiences, about what it's like to work as a professional actor. I mean, that's just universal, right?
Mhm.
What is it like to audition? What is it like to submit your headshot? What is it like to create a resume? Um, but then I can also really customize it based on the class. I teach a lot of different classes in the community college, which I love, but it can also be overwhelming. So I teach acting for film and TV. I teach, theater history. I teach acting in form and style. So there's a lot of space for me to create content, upload content. And also we have a large Chinese population. So I always look at my students first. I believe in the organic syllabi, because I may have a structure and an idea, but I really want to meet my students first, because I want to make sure that everyone is included. So, I will make sure that there's a play or something from, a Chinese American playwright, or, African American, Black playwright, Indigenous, I try to be as sensitive and culturally conscious as possible. And so, again, my work and coming from the background that I am, that supports that. But I have to continue to do my research. And so you asked, why am I continuing to teach? Like I said before, I feel as alive as an educator as I do as a performer. It's collaborative working in a theater department. It is inspiring. It is challenging. I always tell people, working at a community college is like community organizing, truly, especially right now. Our enrollment is quite low. We serve, students who are working 1-2 jobs, multi-generational families. So the pandemic really interrupted a lot of students' livelihood and ability to be in school, as probably all of our campuses. So we're slowly building back up our community. I just actually sent an email today to announce a Chicano theater class that will be taught here at ELAC for the first time in ages. And I'm hoping that will slowly, start to encourage people to return to school, get excited about school, about learning. And, it's like, I think I used the phrase, we're talking about what is culturally sensitive or culturally conscious teaching. And that's one aspect of it. I love what I do. I know it's hard. Like so many people, I have been burnt out. I've cried. I've been frustrated. I just, we need breaks. This pandemic has taught me about self-care, centering self-care as a practice, not only for my students, but for myself. Like it's so hard. Our capitalistic culture demands, right, that we're constantly in this heightened state of productivity. But what we're seeing with the great resignation of the moment is that actually, no, people are saying no. And I think that is the silver lining, and I think as an educator, a theater maker, I really am looking to that to also give me the courage to create healthy boundaries, to say no, so that I can show up fully for my students and so that I can remain inspired and be here for the long haul, because I want to build something here. I'm the first full-time Latina faculty here at East LA College Theater Department. So it's an immense responsibility that I feel every day. But I know that I need to sort of, take it slow, and it is a marathon, not a sprint, right? So I just know that this is my path. This is one of those opportunities I was not looking for. It landed in my lap. I obviously went through the process of applying, but everything aligned kind of effortlessly, and you've heard those quotes, like you want to, you want to love what you do. If you love what you do, you never work a day in your life type thing.
Yes.
And I feel like that's where I'm at. I mean, the work comes with just like, balancing all that responsibilities, right? But what I get to do, like meeting with students and teaching students and collaborating with artists in my department, like that's what's fabulous about teaching in theater. Like I think all of the full-time, we're all MFAs, right? Whether it's in scenic design or lighting design or acting, or costume and makeup, like those are my collaborators at work, plus all the part-time faculty that bring all their interesting personalities and skills. So it just is a really good match for me. And, for years I wasn't full-time. For years I was a part-time teacher and, or teaching artists, I think they called us teaching artists and actor, just hustling for years and years and years, and then this all sort of aligned and fell into place. And one of my mentors, actually, I didn't mention her, Alma Martinez, because when I accepted this job, I said, who can I speak to that is a Latina academic? I don't really identify as an academic, because I don't do theory per se. I'm a theater arts practitioner, but you know what I mean when I say she's working in higher ed, has her PhD, and is working all the time in TV, film, and theater. And I met with her. I said, I don't know. I'm scared. I'm scared I'm going to be giving up all that freedom and the freelance life that I thought I was good with. And she said, Cristina, what if this opportunity gave you so much structure that it actually expanded your creative opportunities? And she was right. She was absolutely right. Like, I don't feel I've had to give up anything. If anything,
Wow.
wow.
That's
Like,
great.
yeah, if anything, I have more creative opportunity now than ever before, because I have a home and a foundation and a support system, and I can just thrive, you know? And you make choices. Like I said at the very beginning, there's always choices to be made, but that was the case when, I was sitting at home waiting for the phone to ring. I'm not, like I said, I'm not that person who wrote the big pilot script, or the epic play while I was waiting to go lift drive or get that audition. Like, I
Right.
couldn't figure that world out. I don't do well with too much time on my hands. So this has been good for me. This has been good for me.
Totally. Which leads me to, where do you see yourself in the future, both as an artist and an educator?
Here, here. I mean, I do plan to write. I do plan to develop scripts. I have lots of sort of ideas and drafts, and carve out that. I think that's the next chapter for me, definitely. But that'll be like, applying for artistic residencies is something I'm interested in, where you can just go away. I understand more than ever now that the reason why residencies exist is because you need them. When you have busy lives, artistic lives, work home lives, it's like you need to go away to the mountains or the woods and leave it all behind and hyper
I
focus.
daydream about that all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where I see myself growing as an artist. I'm going to be starting to direct here at ELAC next spring. I actually directed my first ELAC show. It became a online project called Islos Rising, which I'm very proud of. But next spring I'll be directing a festival. So I see myself developing those skills as well. And also, I would say, just being a community leader. I want to be a voice and an advocate for the next generation. I want to get people in these seats in these classrooms, and, one after the pandemic, but just in general, I want young people to see theater as a viable path. Because you don't have to just be a performer. Like, we have an incredible tech theater program that is basically, like I've already mentioned, you can get skills certificates in lighting and scenic, in costume and makeup, in acting. So there's really all kinds of opportunities where students can come and they can take these skill certificates and go out into the workforce. So really, as a department, we're talking about different ways to market this, because people come to our campus and they're like, oh my God, and we have a state-of-the-art facility here at East Los Angeles College, right next to the Vincent Price Museum. It's historic. But we want people to know about it, because I think people think, when you think about theater schools, everyone is thinking about 4 years, or thinking about LA Community College because they have a great arts conservatory program. But, life is changing. And, you can go to community college and have your first 2 years paid for, and then transfer. And that's an option I wish I would have considered when I was a young adult. But that's, there's just a lot I dream of, and there's a lot of space to dream here, and we'll see. And I'll continue working as an actor too.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And finally, what advice would you give to aspiring artists?
Okay, basically that listen to your truth, surround yourselves with people you admire, you respect, you want to learn from, people that are better than you. And yeah, stay open, explore, dream, travel, keep taking classes, and trust, and breathe, and just know it's all going to be okay. There's no one way. There's no one right way. It's just, just be curious. Just be curious. Always speak your truth. Exercise, meditate, eat healthy, all that good stuff.
Totally. Thank you. Thank you so much
Yes,
for meeting with me today.
absolutely. I actually have parked behind someone, another faculty member.
Oh,
They've been
no.
knocking on my door.